Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamualaikum. So today we're going to have our video teaching session for part 2 of chapter 5. So this is the part 2 of chapter 5. So again, chapter 5 is about the research and intellectual properties. When we left off, we stopped at the fifth element of the research and intellectual properties, which is the conflict of interest. So what is conflict of interest? So the definition of the conflict of interest is a conflict between the private interest and the official responsibilities of a person in a position of trust. So this is a conflict between the private or the personal and the professional responsibilities. These are the several potential conflict of interest that can happen in your life or anyone's life. Okay, now, so a conflict of interest is not a conflicting interest. For example, in this picture, there is a student. He likes to play soccer and football. So he cannot decide which one is his interest. So this is not a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is also not a conflicting obligation. For example, so there is this engineering technologist. He has to design an automobile. So his obligation is to design a safe automobile. But he also has an obligation to his boss or employer to make a profit out of the automobile. So this is not a conflict of interest. So basically, an engineer is only forced to protect the legal interests of his employer or client. There are three types of conflicts of interest. There is 1, actual conflict of interest, 2, potential conflict of interest, and the last but not least, it is apparent conflict of interest. We are going to have a look at each of these types. So for the first type of conflict of interest, which is known as the actual conflict of interest, we're going to have a look at this case study. If you can still remember, we have seen this case study in the previous part 1 of chapter 5. So let's have a quick refresh. So this case study is about William, who is a purchasing agent for a company called Jayco. William's family own a company that makes bolts, and then later the company that he is working for needs to buy 100,000 bolts. So if Jayco purchased the bolts from William's family, and of course the values of John's stock in the family business will increase by 20%. Now the second type of conflict of interest, it is called potential conflict of interest. Again, William is a purchasing agent for Jayco, but this time his fiance's family own a company that makes bolts, and then later the company, Jayco, needs to purchase 100,000 bolts. Now this can be a potential conflict of interest if William marries his fiancée. Then if Jayco purchase or buy the bolts from his fiancé's company, then William will gain financially. Now the last or the final type of conflict of interest is called the apparent conflict of interest. So in this case, William is still a purchasing agent for Jayco, and his family own a company that makes bolts, but William had a fight with his family and has not spoken to them. And then later, when Jayco needs to purchase 100,000 bolts from his family's business, William obviously does not own any stock in the bolt company of his family. So this is what we call an apparent conflict of interest. Now, why does a conflict of interest matter? Why do we need to avoid a conflict of interest? So let's say you are hired because of your expertise. Then your judgment call or your decision making must be reliable, because your client or your boss or your employer, they must trust you to make the correct decisions. So it goes back to making good judgment call. Therefore, you have to avoid this actual and potential conflict of interest, because simply it can cause biased decision. So there are two solutions that they propose you when you are in a conflict of interest situation. The first solution, you can disclose, tell the truth, okay, reveal yourself. Or the second solution is for you to recuse yourself, for you to recuse. You have to Google the meaning of recuse. It means that you have to avoid yourself from involving in the situation that is your conflict of interest. Now the sixth element is gifts, presents. Okay. Accepting a valuable gift should be avoided because it can cause conflict of interest. But some people think that if the gifts are not so expensive, then usually it is okay. So, where is the line drawn between the not so expensive gifts and an expensive or very expensive gifts? So these are the code of ethics which you can read later. Now let's have a look at the case study number 11. Alright. So Fatima has been named the department manager of a large new chemical process plant which is to be designed and constructed. Fatima recommends that the design staff specify a new Valco valve to replace the traditional gate valves. Valco valves are superior to traditional gate valves because they seal more tightly and more quickly. Now, after a large number of Valco valves have been ordered, Jamal, the Valco salesman and a former classmate of Tima's, stops by and gives Tima a pen with the company logo stamped in gold. The pen is worth about 5 ringgit. The question is, should Tima accept the pen? What do you think? To answer this question, we can use positive and negative paradigm approach. And to use this approach, we are going to have several attributes, which are the timing, the quality of the product, which is the valves, the value of the gift, in this case is the pen, and the relationship of giver. So in this case, the giver is Jamal. Now, let's have a look at the timing. So, Jamal gave a pen to Fatima after she ordered the valves. So, this is after procurement. The quality of the valves is high because, as mentioned, that these valves, they can seal quickly than the traditional valve. The value of the pen is low because it only costs 5 ringgit. And the relationship of the giver between Jamal and Fatima is they are classmates. Okay. So by looking at this approach of the positive and negative paradigm approach, we can see that all attributes are leaning towards the positive paradigm. So it means Fatima can accept the pen. Now, let's have a look at the second situation. After a large number of Valco valves have been ordered, Jamal, the Valco salesman and a former classmate of Tima's, stops by and invites Tima to play golf in an exclusive country club. Should Tima accept the golf invitation? Again, now let's use this positive and negative paradigm approach to answer this second situation. Now the timing is after the procurement. The quality of the product is high, that's why she ordered it, and the value of gift is somewhere in between. So it is not very low, it is not very high, so somewhere in between. And the relationship of the giver is still a friend. Okay. So by looking at this result, it looks like it is more towards the positive paradigm. So it is still okay. Now let's have a look at the third situation. After a large number of Valco valves have been ordered, Jamal, the Valco salesman and a former classmate of Tima, stops by. Jamal indicates that he will sponsor Tima for membership in an exclusive country club. Should Tima accept the membership? Let's use this positive and negative paradigm approach. So the timing is still the same after the procurement. The quality of the product is high, of course. The value of the gift now this time is very high. Why very high? Let's have a look at the previous slide. Because Jamal indicates that he will sponsor Tima for a membership in an exclusive country club. So this is a very expensive gift. The relationship of giver is still friend. Jamal is still Fatima's friend. Now by looking at this, still we have 3 out of 4 attributes leaning towards the positive paradigm. But the one that is leaning to the negative paradigm is on the high negative paradigm. So still on the decision, you still have to think. Now, fourth situation. After a large number of Valco valves have been ordered, Jamal, the Valco salesman, stops by. Although Tima has never met Jamal before, Jamal indicates that he will sponsor Tima for membership in an exclusive country club. Should Tima accept the membership? So this situation is slightly different than the previous situation, where this time Tima and Jamal, they are not friends. They don't know each other. Okay? Let's have a look at this approach. The timing still on the positive paradigm, which is after procurement. The quality of the product is still high. The value of the gift is high. So it is towards the negative paradigm. And the relationship of the giver is on the negative paradigm, which is they are strangers to each other. They are not friends. So by looking at these results, these test results, we can see that 50% of the attributes are going to the positive paradigm and the other 50% are going to the negative paradigm. So this is a 50-50 situation. Now, the fifth situation. As Tima is considering Valco selection, Jamal, the Valco salesman, stops by. Although Tima has never met Jamal before, Jamal indicates that he will sponsor Tima for membership in an exclusive country club. Should Tima accept the membership? And hopefully, this is the last situation that we are going to use this approach. So the timing, it is before procurement, before Fatima places the order. The quality of the product is high, of course. The value of the gift is high. And the relationship of the giver is on the stranger, which is the negative paradigm. So by looking at these test results, 3 of the attributes are leaning towards the negative paradigm and only 1 attribute leaning towards the positive paradigm. Okay. Oh, so we have another one. Before Valco valves have been ordered, Jamal, the Valco salesman, stops by. Although Timah has never met Jamal before, Jamal indicates that he will sponsor Timah for membership in an exclusive country club. Should Timah